Because what we learned about you folks is you don't have any time.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of SaaS Showdown, the podcast where we talk about anything and everything SaaS management. I'm Rose Layton, and I'm here with my co-host and partner in crime,
Colin McCarthy. Great to be back here again, Rose.
Great to see you, Colin. And today we have a couple of special guests. Who do we got?
Yes, we have Hiten and Marie from Nira, one of my favorite cloud security applications. So you and I have spoken a lot about collaboration and the ease and ability to collaborate and share. But we brought two of the best security professionals in that space to come on today and talk to us about all of their products. So Marie and Hiten, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about Nira. For the folks at home, obviously Colin and I are familiar, but
we am. Yeah, as a disclaimer, I have used the product and loved the product in the past. And we're actually going to, let's ask the origin story, which this question was created by Gemini AI. So there are, and I love this as an ongoing theme, getting Gemini AI to do our questions. So there are other document security players out there. What was the aha moment or frustration experience that made you think, we got to build something better? We got to do Nira?
Yeah. So quick intro for me. I'm Marie. I'm the co-founder and COO here at Nira. And we had a number of aha moments, but I'll start with our first one. We actually used to be an enterprise search tool called FYI. And so people could search across about 24 different applications to find documents, whether you're using Google or Microsoft or Box or Dropbox, any of those, you could search across them. And as part of our customer development, we were sitting down with various founders and kind of taking them through the product and just watching their reactions to it. And so we sat down with one particular one in San Francisco. He was the CEO of about a 50 or 100 person company. And we kind of watched him go through various moments of delight as he kind of saw the documents at his fingertips. And then it really rapidly descended into this kind of terrified look. And he was like, what's going on? And so just to take one step back, our application on the right side of it would show every single collaborator on documents. So everybody that you're working with on documents. And suddenly he said to us, what happened? What did FYI do? You shared a bunch of my documents with people who shouldn't have access. And, that obviously wasn't true. We didn't do that. But we said, yeah, exactly. We said okay, why don't you click into some of these people? And so, he picked someone, it was an ex-employee that had left, let's say 4 years ago. And he clicked in and he was like, oh my God, they have access to all these documents. And he started clicking on the documents, going into Google. And right away, he noticed they're on there. They've been on there for years while they were no longer employees. And at the time, he was going through his Series B. And so this was the right time for him to clean up. He said he'd stayed up till 3 a.m. finding people in Nira that shouldn't have, in FYI that shouldn't have access, and then going and removing them in Google. And that was our first moment of, there's something here that we really hadn't thought of before. But then we had a second aha moment that I'll let you share.
Yeah. When you're doing this work to try to identify, in our case, what should we do next? Because what we had some very specific criteria around getting it to larger companies. And I call it the auth wall. So if we were trying to deploy an enterprise search tool and an employee wants to use it to improve their productivity, they'd hit the auth wall. The auth wall is what folks like you two essentially turn on, so no one can authenticate third-party tools and bring the data to those tools. And so that was a big reason we even started having these discussions. And so we are wait, it's IT and security folks that actually care about this in a way that is probably a painful challenge. So what ended up happening is we got really friendly with someone named Tony, who worked at Boston Consulting Group's digital ventures arm down in LA. And he invited me to come speak on product and retention and all these things that apparently I'm an expert on. And we actually had very high retention at FYI. So it was a very, very interesting discussion there. But I told him I'd like to spend a few hours with the IT and security team there. The reason for that is that group spends time with the Fortune 500 companies on innovation. And they spend time with IT and security folks. So I wanted to talk to their IT and security folks. And so I started showing them the enterprise search tool. And I'm like, hey, this is what we got. What would it take to get you folks to be okay deploying it? And they looked at me and they're like, yeah, they kind of gave me some lip service. And essentially the TLDR is we don't really care to deploy an enterprise search tool. This was before AI and all the hype right now because it was several years ago. But what they said was, let us show you something. I said, okay. And they pulled up box.com and the admin console. And they said, what you do at Nira for the employees, can you do that for us? And I'm like, oh. And when they showed me the tool, it's like, it has pagination, super hard to do bulk, all the things you folks know, bulk remediation, taking actions, making it granular, being able to get to things fast and all that. That was none of what the admin console in Box did. It was actually kind of alarming, to be honest, as I was sitting there. But at that time, I was a little naive and I was just listening and hearing it. And I didn't quite know until we started building what ended up being Nira, how impactful that conversation and the one Marie and I had with that founder was, because it was pointing to like us taking our current product and actually doubling down on something and then hitting a different audience with it. So just like Marie mentioned, we had faces all over it. Most enterprise search tools, even today, don't show all the faces of the collaborators and all that stuff. And so we were kind of surfacing something that wasn't really easy to see in Google or Microsoft or any of those tools. So that's when we really started talking even more to IT and security leaders and started learning really quickly that it's a very challenging problem for them when it comes to managing who has access to what in terms of documents. And it was a little bit of even today, I think it's a little bit of a like, if you know it's a problem and you've had to work on that problem, you're probably like, oh, thank God there's tools to help me with that. And then when we demo our tool, because we really hit on these points, it becomes really clear that if I do say so myself, we're the best in the market for it. Right.
Yeah. It's the limitations of those collaboration platforms, admin panels it is well known by everybody who's probably listening.
Colin and I have definitely spent multiple episodes talking about how there's some really beautiful polished products out there that just leave everything on the table when it comes to administering and securing and just really even understanding what's going on behind the hood of what your employees are using.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the focus, Rose, I've always seen that the focus for a lot of those platforms has always been on the end user use of collaboration, all of the development money, all of the UI enhancements are always about the usability and the seamlessness of the platform. It's never about the boringness of who
has to actually administer it, which is funny because people like Colin and I, we are both end users and administrators. So we can see both sides. Like I love Canva, for example. Like I love to use it to create things. I think it makes things very easy. But as an administrator, administering Canva it's a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare because they've not really put a lot of work into it. And it just seems like it's not a priority for them. So I actually really do appreciate that, like, you were having those conversations with people, and that it seemed like it caused a little bit of a product shift for you, right? Like you went from something that was enterprise search to what we have today, which is a lot more like collaboration focused, security focused. I would call it SaaS management, So, really, really, really interesting.
We did a complete pivot. Yeah, I think Keith and I both got excited. No, you go ahead and then I can go.
No, I was just saying it was a complete pivot. It was like a pure, we built something, we hit some roadblocks, we learned some stuff from the people that were using it, and then we built something else and it's working. And then some.
Yeah. So I'm just curious though, because if you feel like if it's a complete pivot, how much of Nira today still does that function? Can you use it for that?
I mean, I personally use it to find my documents sometimes, but it's not made for.
It's not made for that anymore. No, okay, that makes sense.
We did something that you're going to appreciate. Colin knows about it, of course, but we built an employee security portal, and that allows employees to see just the stuff they've created in order to take care of this kind of concept we know folks like you and security leaders, et cetera, are really caring about, which is this idea of democratizing security inside an organization. So you could almost say that like we've kind of set ourselves up to go add the enterprise search right to that if we really wanted to.
Right. And that's a wonderful part of the product because it does put some of the onus of document security back onto the document owners. And it's not just purely an administration function, because obviously administrators, have millions, trillions of documents inside their platform. So they don't know what all of the sharing rights can be.
I would even argue that it's not even just about document security, because like if you've been on a team and somebody, like who's been there a while leaves, everybody knows it's a mess. Yes. It is a mess to sort out all the stuff that's left behind from them. And unless you're like super invested on shared drives or whatever, right? Like you're not familiar with somebody else's stuff. It's somebody else's stuff. And so like being able to go through that and manage it and organize it in a way, like it contributes to security. Yes, absolutely it does. But it also contributes to team continuity and institutional knowledge.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And also we learned that employees really care about this themselves. For the most part, everybody.
I think most employees don't really want to mess it up.
Exactly. Like we've had situations where people found out that CS documents were shared with, like the wrong customers or have public links, and once they see that, they want to clean it up. So it's really about giving them that visibility that they don't have, and it's kind of today like on IT and security's shoulders to do this with limited context.
Yeah. Let's do question 2 of Gemini AI for Google Workspace's question. Hinton,
I was about to ask you, did Gemini make that question too?
It did. Gemini made all of these questions. Yes. Colin's trying to get better at his prompt game.
They're good questions.
The easiest way.
I spend 2 hours with AI every day as a commitment to myself. So you need any tips, Colin, let me know. Gemini is definitely on the lower end of my usage right now, but still, let me know.
I probably I'd always be thankful for some tips, because there's always stuff to learn. And that's why using it more in the daily life is helping, because it's still relatively emerging. And I know we're taking a bit of a sidetrack, but you have real professionals in the subject and other people that are just dabbling.
I would imagine there's going to be training specialties devoted to how to, teaching people how to use AI better and how to prompt better.
Just to throw one tip in there. Throw one tip in there for fun. My favorite one right now is telling it to take the role of somebody.
Yes.
So take the role of IT and security leaders and evaluate our marketing copy. Like those kind of things have been pretty instructive.
Yeah. That's a good tip.
Yeah, it's all about the 4. I know we're sidetracking even more. It is all about is it persona, task, situation? There's 4 separate parts of the prompt and how you build it.
Yep.
I don't know. There needs to be one.
There needs to be a mnemonic. We'll find one. Yeah. There's got to be one out there. All right,
Gemini,
question 2.
Gemini AI wanted to know, this is challenges in the wild. We all know that cloud collaboration is awesome, but let's be real. It opens up some new security headaches. What are the weirdest or most unexpected things you're seeing companies struggle with when it comes to keeping their documents safe?
Yeah, it's a fun question. Weirdest or most unexpected things. I think employees and former employees and vendors using personal accounts is way more common than anyone would imagine. And I think it goes like,
and also incredibly dangerous from a security standpoint.
Yes, and this can be like the C-suite doing that. I mean, that's not uncommon. Yeah. And it's usually accidental. Sometimes it's malicious, obviously. There's also the case of like people make documents on their personal accounts accidentally. So like, let's say you're using your personal Chrome profile, you do like doc.new, and then suddenly it's on there, you've added your colleagues, and then you leave the company, and what happens to those documents? And so that's a situation that we see all the time.
Yeah, Colin and I see it too, because when we do migrations, you have to fix those problems.
Exactly. And in the case of what we call inbound documents, so docs that are created by personal accounts and coming into a company, usually companies have no idea about them. And it's just like all this information that's walking out the door, you can't control. And then I think, I'm just thinking of like unexpected ones specifically. We've seen things like trusted advisors. Let's say it's on an M&A deal, or, you know, your accountant, they're using their personal accounts because, they don't use Google. So they'll just sign up with their personal account and get access that way, which is obviously a massive risk because you don't know what kind of security practices they have on their personal accounts. Another funny one we've seen is like, I think we all know that when employees leave companies, the majority do take documents with them right before they leave. And so we've seen cases where employees are kind of like accumulating this almost like war chest of documents from previous companies, but they're putting it in their new companies, Google Drive or OneDrive. And so that's a huge risk that when a company sees that, they're really anxious about that. And Heaton, I don't know if you've got any others.
Yeah, I wanted to sort of double click on one of the ones you said. So when we were building the product, and I know this is about SaaS management and all that, so I wanted to talk a little bit about like what we discovered. We discovered that we could find the inbound documents, and we realized that no one else was doing that. Even to this day, I don't think anyone is doing the type of monitoring we're doing to find ones coming into accounts. Because if you try to take the ID of a Google document, you know, that little hashed ID, and put it in Google's tools for an inbound document that's not created or owned by the company, it will not show it to you. No. So essentially, there's zero visibility on external parties, personal accounts, anybody coming in that's created a doc and shared it with the company. And like, we like to go deep. I've been building software for 20 years, been building software with our CTO for about 14, been building software with Marie for 8. And it's like those kind of things that are like that aha moment of, we could do something that everyone's going to love, that no one else does. Like, that's what you're looking for. And even 4 years later, almost, we don't see anyone doing that.
No.
And so it's like,
I was going to say, the only way I've ever had any visibility into that specific issue is using GAM, which is like an open source third party tool and you piece together bits and pieces of it to make a massive spreadsheet. And then you find the things that you need, right? There's not tools doing it for you. Like, people need this, but
And in our tool, it's 2 clicks, because we realize that's an important one. Outside of that, I wanted to share one very common scenario we kept hitting, which is this idea of request access. So there's countless times that we've had people come to us from an IT and security standpoint, so IT security folks, and say, hey, an executive, it keeps getting these requests for their documents. And it's a request access email that says this person requests access to your document. And they freak out, and then they talk to IT and security, and they're like, hey, what's going on? And so we built a whole bunch of stuff to monitor the behavior now. But it's really interesting when you build these businesses, what causes someone to just show up. This isn't like, I need controls or anything. This is just like, an executive is bugging me about this. We don't have enough visibility into it, and we don't know what to do. Can you help us with that?
Right.
And then I know you folks tend to use that to slip into all the use cases you folks care about too. So I wanted to share that one too.
Yeah. And underneath all of this and all these kind of stories we're sharing is really the fact that it's so difficult as an administrator to get visibility into who has access to documents at a granular level. It's just like Rose, what you said, you're using open source GAM scripts and then like making a spreadsheet. And guess what? In like 10 minutes, that spreadsheet is no longer valid because things have changed, right?
Because something has changed. You have a snapshot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And
exactly.
It's what you get out of the. I know we're talking about Google Workspace for the most part and Google Drive, and that's where most of your inbound documents are coming from, aren't they? And I know that the information you can get out of the investigation tool depends on what SKU you're on and what you can get out. And utilizing the actual investigation tool is very limited. There's a lot of horizontal scrolling for miles and miles. So you have to export it to a Google Sheet, a CSV file, and manage it all in there. I have had that problem where somebody very senior in an organization, pinged me and said, this, you've got to fix the sharing rights. The client has pointed out that a document is being shared publicly. Here's the anonymous link. And I was like, that can't be us because we turned that off years ago. I was going to bring
something about this too. So I think one of the things.
Let me finish my story, Rose.
Okay, go.
I haven't finished my story.
I'm excited.
I know. Put a pin in it, as they say in corporate America. We'll circle back. I'm just going to lean in and tell this story. So yeah, I said, what's this link? I looked to the document ID. I looked in the investigation tool. Nothing came up. Used another platform that we were using to manage Google Workspace. Nothing came up. And then I had that aha moment. Let's put the document ID in Nira. Lo and behold, it popped up, showed that the document was owned by a Gmail account. It was an employee. They had made that mistake of being signed into their personal Gmail account inside their Chrome profile. It was a work profile, because we required it for context to our access. They had just clicked, new document, and it had gone to their personal account rather than, and that was brilliant because we could shut that down within a few minutes. Does also really highlight the need, and I'll do a plug for Chrome Enterprise Premium and having a managed browser and stopping people from being able to sign into a personal Gmail account in a work profile as well. So you don't have those problems. But yeah, I see it as one of those most vital tools that we need nowadays, because there's nothing else that gives you that visibility. And when you start looking, you will start to be terrified about what you find, and then you have to try and work out, all right, what's manageable? Where can I, change people's ways of working? Where can you highlight what the problems are?
You'll learn a lot about your organization by digging into the permissions on your docs.
Where can you put in automations, with workflow engines and everything? So, but Rose, sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was
on my soapbox.
What you said about documents being shared publicly, I think one of the things that happens that I've seen happen in every organization is I feel like sometimes organizations get too, they hold on to whether they're Google or Microsoft too hard, and they don't acknowledge that if you are a client-facing organization, you're gonna end up with clients with the other one. Mm-hmm. And the number one thing I see happening all the time is that when people are faced with a sharing issue across platforms, they're gonna just share publicly. That's what they're gonna do. Or they're going to force people into this position where they're creating accounts with their personal emails, right?
It's
I have a personal OneDrive.
Resistance.
I have a personal Gmail. If I was ever in that position, sure, I may not create a brand new account just for that, except that I do this for a living. So, but I can see why people do that. Your employees they're just trying to get their work done. They're just trying to do that. Right. So the only thing we can do is try to have this visibility and try to have this monitoring. But the problem is, right, that you noticed and that Nira has grown to fill this space is that the tools that we had out there were not even attempting to do this work. They weren't even attempting to help.
Yeah. And I think the converse side of this is if you lock down sharing. So if you're okay, I just want to be extra safe and lock it down. Yeah. Then suddenly you've got all this shadow sharing happening where people are just signing up for their own accounts in other tools. And
or they'll go get a Dropbox paper kind of deal. And
exactly.
Suddenly you'll have a million people working out of a tool that you don't manage at all.
Exactly. Yeah.
How many collaboration platforms does Nira work on? I think you said you started with 24.
So initially with the enterprise search tool, we had 24. What we learned in the last few years is that most IT and security vendors will go so wide that they're only an inch deep. So we actually made a deliberate decision because we thought this opportunity was so important, I guess, and critical, that we focused on Google first. So specifically Google Drive and everything in there. So shared drive support. I mean, you name it, we basically do it.
Which is a big deal because, as Colin and I have mentioned on multiple episodes before, shared drive support is not very common.
And it's incredibly
understandably
difficult
because the APIs suck.
But look, here's the thing. It doesn't matter that the APIs suck. We have to do the best possible job we can to solve the problem you folks have, or we're screwed.
Yeah,
right?
And I appreciate that.
and so you folks think that the shared drives APIs are bad? Well, wait till you hit Microsoft. So basically today we've gone deeper than any other company we have seen on Microsoft and Google. This includes, so it's Google Drive, Microsoft OneDrive, Microsoft SharePoint, and because everything in Teams that gets uploaded goes to one of those two places, we cover Teams too. So I'm really excited to share this because we haven't really said too much about this publicly, but it's complete, basically.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of
really
companies
good point,
that use both.
Microsoft is not, it's not just OneDrive, and it's not just SharePoint, and it's not just Teams. It is all three of those things.
That's right.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's pretty good. So it's the full Google collaboration suite,
and the full
My
Microsoft.
Drive, shared drives, and then the full Microsoft. Any others? Or
there's others on the roadmap?
I guess what's next? Like, what are you thinking about next?
Look, here's the thing. You mentioned Canva, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's an infinite amount. That's the short answer.
Of course there
is.
The
longer answer is, do the APIs allow us to do the magic we want to do? Right. And then how important are they to IT and security teams?
Yeah.
And today, you folks know, Microsoft, Google, you cover that. You cover like a vast majority of what people need. But as things change, and as we get into the future, I think like all those little tools that do collaboration and do the sharing and all that, even if they're used by 5%, 10%, 1% of the organization, they end up becoming more and more important. And so we're just thinking through which ones should we prioritize based on what folks are telling us to do. And then, of course, there's all the chat apps that you keep uploading documents to, Google Chat, Slack, et cetera. And so the opportunity is kind of crazy because you think about it, even Jira, Trello, like Linear, any tool you name, they have this thing where you can upload a document. And then all of a sudden that document's available to everyone with the permissioning on the ticket or whatever it is. So we got excited about this many years ago because we already saw that as what the trend was and what was going to happen. But again, we go back to what is a fundamental need? What is a core need? How do we not spread ourselves thin by just adding integration after integration? And because now we have Google and Microsoft in a federated interface, you literally can see everything in one interface, make all the changes in bulk across tools. We're ready to start adding more. And that's kind of what we were focused on from an infrastructure backend standpoint. One last thing I'll say on that is I think we've rewritten and refactored the product 6 times in big ways in order to get this federation to work so that when you come into our tool, you can get to what you want quickly, kind of like the example that Colin gave, and I want to say a million more, and then you're out. Because what we learned about you folks is you don't have any time at all.
Yeah, that's accurate.
And I think the other thing that's really important for us is standardization across the different applications.
Yeah.
And so if you look at SharePoint, it has different verbiage and different types of links than Google does. And so what we want to do is just make it as easy as possible to make decisions about what access should be there across all the applications. And that's
an excellent
way harder
point.
than it seems.
Right.
Yeah.
I've got a question about that. How do you it's difficult to be a master of Google Workspace and a master of Microsoft at the same time. How do you manage with your developers and the engineering being masters of how all of the document sharing works in OneDrive, SharePoint, Teams, and also the underlying APIs, and then on the Google Workspace side? Are they like 2 separate teams, or are the APIs relatively similar so that you can have a sort of a standardized understanding?
Nothing is similar. Period. Nothing is similar. We have people who have expertise in the different APIs. We try to have more than one person having at least some level of expertise. So there's always a key person that's responsible. I would just say that like the ultimate answer to your question is our engineers and the engineering team, Steve, our CTO, and them, they care as much as Marie and I do about solving the problem correctly. You mentioned shared drives. Yeah, I mean, if anyone has shared drive integration that's not Nira, I can almost guarantee you they're missing shared drives. And the reason for that is we know exactly what bugs exist in their API that we had to work around, and it took us months to work around. But here's the thing. When you came to us, Colin, and you're like, hey, you got to solve this. The other folks haven't solved it. You have to solve it. I don't know if you remember how long it took, because I don't, and I don't want to. Our engineers don't want to. Marie doesn't want to. Our CTO doesn't want to. But it stuck. And like,
it was a bad time.
Yeah, but then when like they came out from that shadow, they're like, hey, it's done. We can guarantee it's 100%. You could throw it at Colin and his team, and they'll love it, right? Like, and that care. Again, I'm going to stop my soapbox and rant on this, but that care across a company about the product because a customer needs the product done right is like rare. And after building software for 20 years, like I complain about every piece of software I use. And a good example of this is, and then I promise I'll get off this rant, but is that I think in the last 18 months, we've had not more than a handful or two of support requests for our product. And if you look at our website, there is no support documentation on the website. And people think
so it's not
crazy.
like you're over providing support in order to reduce that. There's just not.
That's right.
That's a testament. If a product doesn't need a support desk and you don't have to do tickets and it just works on its own, then that's amazing. That's where everybody should be achieving. That should be the standard bar.
There's something to be said for providing great support, but there's also something to be said for building something that doesn't need support.
Right. And that's actually how we built the product. Like, we looked at other tools out there and we saw that even to get kind of detailed information about, for example, what actions went through and didn't, when you make a change, like change these 1 million public links, for example, teams had to go to support. And we didn't want that. We wanted to provide exactly the information that you folks needed as quickly as possible, because as we said earlier, you're busy, you're juggling so many things, you don't have time to go to support for those questions.
Oh yeah. Like I used to make it like a Friday afternoon out of it when I would just stack up all the support tickets I needed to do for the week. And then I would just like Friday after lunch, just like I'm doing support tickets today.
Yeah.
I think we are getting towards our final AI
Gemini AI sponsored question.
Yes.
So crystal ball time. Let's get futuristic. And these are Gemini AI's words, not mine. How do you see the whole collaboration versus security dance playing out? What kind of tech or features do you think that will be a must-have in the secure workspaces of tomorrow?
You want to take it first, Marie?
Sure. I think one emerging trend that we've been seeing just like exploding is companies that are using AI work assistants, AI enterprise search, AI powered enterprise search. And what's happening is suddenly with those tools, employees have more information than they ever could at their fingertips. And, that's great, right? Except what's underneath of that is there are so many sharing misconfigurations that companies have today. So the majority have either most or a very high percentage of documents with company links. So anyone in the company can access them if they have the link. There's tons of public links. There's people who shouldn't be on documents that were added and never removed. And so now that companies are rolling out,
care about that.
Right. The AI just cares about the underlying permission. Like the underlying permissions are, it's a company link. Anyone in the company can see it. And so when you put questions like, what's my boss's salary, or like, what's the engineering team's salary into whether it's Microsoft Copilot or again, any kind of enterprise search tools that are AI powered, there's suddenly this risk that didn't exist before where those sharing misconfigurations are just visible. Employees can get information they couldn't. And so what we're seeing is, especially in the C-suite, CIOs, CISOs, and other folks, they're worried about this and they're holding up rollouts because they want to clean up access first.
Right. That's
So you have to do the work. Yeah.
It's terrifying and very interesting at the same time. I hadn't thought about that because
it's sort of a behavioral thing, right? So like I've been in organizations that use link sharing and they allow link sharing, but they consider like, okay, well, if you don't publish the link,
nobody will know.
Then we're controlling access, right? But you're absolutely right. The AI doesn't care about that. The AI only cares about the permissions. And if you're using link sharing, it doesn't matter where the link's been published because it's still available to everyone. And so the AI is now this new interface to surface all of those links to people. That is, wow. Whew, I didn't really think about that.
I'll add a couple things to double down on this. I think like, as founders, we have to think about the future. We have to think about like, where do these things go? How do we survive through changes in the world? Right now, with the AI work assistant and collaboration being so easy, and again, I'm harping on this, Rose, but you mentioned Canva. I'm sure IT and security.
I like to pull out, like, I like to use real world examples here.
It's really
gives us something to grasp on.
It's really good because think about how many tools have added the collaboration features because it makes those tools more money. Think about how easy they've made it. I know this is all stuff you folks know. So the way we think about it now is that the future of the stuff has everything to do with the employees. It has everything to do with democratizing these controls so that employees can use them. I'm not even talking about things like nudges, no pun intended to companies called nudge, whatever, but I'm talking about deep, deep contextual understanding of what this person is doing, how they're doing it, and then proactively messaging them, not to nag them, but as Marie said earlier, as Marie said earlier, to ensure that they are doing what they want to be doing, not they are doing what IT and security will allow them or not allow them to do. And that distinction isn't a nudge. It isn't a little message. It's a contextual understanding. So I'll give you one quick example. If our system knows that there's this external party and they've already been added on docs, then if you are able to know that, then you don't have to ping the employee if they add them to another doc because it's already verified. It's already okay. If you apply a security automation tool or the standard tools that exist in the market that are very shallow, no offense to them. I understand why they're shallow. You folks want controls across everything. They built everything, went an inch deep and forgot about it. Right? But we can't do that. We build great products. We can't do that. So what ends up happening is like they're bugging the employee every time. And you know what happens then? You have an IT support desk that's upset. And then you have security folks who don't care, to be honest, because they're like, I did my job. And you have employees who
ignore their notifications.
And then you're done.
Right.
Then we're seeing companies rip stuff out. And not to harp on this, but we've heard this consistently about secondary storage tools. And a good example of that is Box Shield.
Yeah.
It's a secondary storage tool. And when you implement it, employees are bothered and employees hate it. Yeah. You need to create an experience where employees are incentivized to essentially do the right thing. You got it. So anyway, off my soapbox on that one, but like
no. I think that's really valuable, right? Like we do need to control what communications are going out to our employees. And I think most employees, like we talked about at the very beginning, most employees want to do the right thing. And they know what they want to be doing. And if we can get them notified in a way that is useful and accurate, right? Like you said, if we already have a trusted person in the environment, why would we notify them when they get added to something else?
Yeah. Most
of the time, that's not going to matter.
Security's always got to be seamless, and any notifications need to be actionable.
Yes.
Because everybody suffers from notification fatigue.
Absolutely.
And, whether it's push notifications for MFA, that's how people are getting phished, even though they've got MFA on their phone.
Because they just say yes.
It's just muscle memory. Oh, it must be a tab that's trying to authenticate, or this stupid system I'll allow, and then you let the bad actor in because you're not looking at the notice.
And the same is true for managing your permissions on your docs. Like you can notify people all day, but if every notification is not useful and relevant and actionable, then
and we see people ripping out products. Good security control.
Yeah.
Because they're
it's
not
just
good.
Not working. Yeah.
Right. And so think of it this way: if employees are allowed to collaborate, why don't you collaborate with them on this IT and security needs too? That's kind of our thesis of the employee security portal, where we kind of see this future of automation, workflows, all that going. It has to be contextual to an extreme. You can't do that unless you've built what we built, which is like all that level of depth. Otherwise, you're just providing more junk and you're causing bigger problems over time. And then what? Right. So it's just, it's something that we worry about.
Yeah. And we have to get better at it, because it's not going away. It's only going to get worse. So we just have to get better at it.
One last thing on this.
Yeah, I was going to say, these will be our closing thoughts for any listeners who have made it this far.
I'll let Marie go last. Let me just say one more thing. So if you think about all of this, the one thing we haven't hit on yet is kind of what we hit on with these workflows and stuff is this is not a one-time problem. Like, companies come to us, they have millions and millions of documents. They're like, we need to clean this up, clean it up. Yeah, okay. We'll help you clean it up like no other. You want to change like 5-10 million documents in your environment with 2 clicks? You can do that with our tool, not a problem. You want to get granular and figure out who's doing what and like who's most riskiest? You want to figure all this out? Cool. But then what? So I think like this is an ongoing problem that needs proper automation and workflows on an ongoing basis. And that's kind of the next big piece of the puzzle that we're looking to solve. We have lots of pieces of it now, but an add-on we've added takes like activity logs and makes them sim-like in an interface, but our interface is so friendly, anyone in legal or compliance can come in and see the behavior if they need to on who's doing what. And then that leads to these workflows and all this advanced stuff that we want to get to. And it's not even advanced. It's just honestly the right thing to build if you need this continuous hygiene because you've deployed this AI.
Yeah, and I think it's absolutely an ongoing problem. We've been thinking about it like a data access governance problem. And it's not just that the problem exists, it's just getting worse and worse over time as people collaborate more and more people are, using these collaboration tools, working remotely. And on top of that, as the AI agents come in, and, we've talked about Gemini quite a bit. To my knowledge, it doesn't go inside the documents today and find things, but I'm sure that's coming soon.
Yeah,
exactly. So that's even more exposure that's about to come.
Yeah. It's sort of like, spring cleaning your house. You don't just do it once, right? You either have to maintain it over time, every day, or you have to do it on a pretty regular cadence.
That's a good example.
Or some marriage of the two. So I think, definitely treating it, like a data governance problem. And like, I think there's a lot of companies that are getting to that point, right? They usually start with this one instance, but they are getting to that point of maturity and that point of organizational control that like, they do need to do it on an ongoing basis. And they need tools that can help them do that. So thank you so much for being here today. Cause Nira it's a fascinating product on the market. It is one of a kind, really. It does some things that really, truly other products do not do.
Yeah. And obviously we haven't done a demo. We haven't done a slide share or a walk through the product. You've talked about it. For those users who have made it this far, and we'll put something at the front, where should people go to learn more?
Just go to Nira.com. It's very much designed for IT and security folks to dig in whatever way they want. I'm not going to say I'm happy with the site. I'm sure Marie would say the same, but it's definitely very informative now, and we feel pretty good about what we're saying on there about some of these things that we chatted about today. And obviously there's more stuff we haven't put that we chatted about. So
if you're in the founder crowd and you're listening, this is how you build good products. For IT people.
Yes.
We like to be listened to.
Thank you for saying that. We really are humbled by both the last time we spoke to you folks and today, and just how much you folks, care and actually want to see great products on the market. That's very refreshing, to be frank. Yeah. And we want to deliver for you.
Yeah, we certainly have. And thanks again for your time here today. This is another enthralling, energizing episode of
you should put that into ChatGPT, see if you can get some more adjectives out of it.
I will. Next time I'm gonna get ChatGPT. I can't wait for vids.google.com to come out and it will do all of it for us.
He's just gonna make the podcast from vids.google.com.